You scroll through hundreds of job descriptions, but they all sound the same. You spend so much time on every application, but it doesn't seem to matter. You send off application after application, but never hear back. You thought the interview went so well, but it's a no. You jump through all the hoops. The news keeps saying how there are all these employers that are struggling to find people to hire. So why does finding a great job have to be so hard? It doesn't seem very logical or fair. It's not. The system is broken. It's not your fault. The process most people go through to get a job is awful. But here's the good news. The system isn't very smart. In fact, it's downright dumb. It can be beaten. How? Most prospective employers and employees today are using the same old tired strategies that have been around forever. It's like professional camouflage. Everybody just blends into the crowd. But you don't have to be that way anymore. You can get traction. You can stand out from the crowd to unleash your God-given potential, to help a world in need, to do work that matters, to earn what you and your family deserve. You can do this. You're meant to do this. There are bright things on the horizon for you. This is the way. Welcome to the workshop. Get hired fast without settling, getting ignored, or losing hope. My name is Eric Woodard. I'm a high-performance career and leadership coach based out of Washington, D.C. And if you're here right now for this workshop, I really want to acknowledge you for your valuable time. Looks like a few of you may be having a little bit trouble hearing me. So if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up in the chat, because I want to make sure that you can hear me. I think most of you probably can. Hopefully our technology's acting okay today. And if it's not, we will figure it out. So look, I know your time's really valuable. I just want to assure those of you who've, thanks guys. I see those thumbs up. I just want to assure you that if you're here for this workshop, I just want to give you a heads up. Like, this workshop is mostly just going to be one big long sales pitch. You okay with that? Nah, no, man, I'm not here to sell you anything, right? This workshop is going to just be lots of tactics and strategies to help you advance in your job search. Okay. So if you don't already have a notebook or something to write with, you're going to take a lot of notes. I will say towards the end of this workshop, I am going to offer a link that you can sign up for a call if you're interested in getting help. If during this workshop you have a little voice that goes off and is like, this is different than stuff I've heard before, and like you're interested in finding out more about how I help clients and my team help clients get hired fast, so we can do that. We're actually going to put that link in the chat right now because I know the schedule is going to fill up. So if you already know, I know some of you have already written me ahead and like, Eric, like, I want to talk about your program. Like, we're putting the link in the chat right now. So if that's something you already know about, go ahead and sign up now. But otherwise, we're going to get started without any further delay. So look, sometimes being on a job hunt is a lot like pounding sand. Sometimes it can feel like waiting on a glacier, right? Timing a glacier. And by the way, if you would, in the chat, put in there where you're from and how long you've been on a job search. I'd be curious to know, right? I'd be curious to know. So, it can be like waiting on a glacier. It can feel like being adrift at sea, being on a job search. Sometimes, being on a job search, it can feel like wandering in the desert. Dorothy from New Jersey, about a year. I see you there, Shelly in Florida, and Jamie in Tampa, and Matt in New York, Richard in Philadelphia. Sometimes it can feel like going into the Coliseum, Matthew in New York, and David in PA, and Andres in Austin, and Ressi in Florida, Ivan in Orlando. Sometimes it can feel like looking into an abyss. Chakwana in Jacksonville. Sorry about that. Omar, I see you, man. So like, I see you there, Ismaili in New York, and I see all of you, right? Being on a job search for a long time can be really tough, right? Can be really tough. So I see you there, Bruce. You stay tuned. We'll share that link again, right? Emma in New York, and Eleanor in LA, and Daniel in Fort Lauderdale. Like, you are in good company. So who's this for? If you're unsure about the direction you want your career to go, if you're struggling to find ways to describe what you do, Linda in New York, if you're uncertain if your resume is any good, Stefan, if you're wrestling with how to follow up after you apply, if you're tired of applying, Elham, I see you, and just hearing nothing back, if you've been doing interviews and they seem to go really great and then you get a no, if you're trapped in a job you really hate, I see you there, Ellen in Michigan, and you're just trying to escape, and especially if you're losing hope, this is a workshop for you. On the other hand, if you're somebody who's, just kind of super casual about your career, not willing to do work, frankly, willing to just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result, if you're reluctant to take responsibility for the results you're getting, if you're really just interested in getting a job to find, to make money. If you're stuck in your ways and sort of closed-minded and you know a lot of things, Diana, I know that's not you. You just came to the US. I see you there, Diana. If you're unwilling to be authentic, this workshop you're in the right place, Natalie, in Cape Town, South Africa, searching for 7 weeks. Okay. So what you're going to learn in this workshop, how to get hired fast without settling, getting ignored, or losing hope. I'm going to offer you 4 strategies, 9 tactics to help you do work that matters and pay what you and your family deserves. And look, we've got a nice big crowd today from all over the world. So as we go through here, we've got, feel free to make comments in the chat, ask questions. We're going to get to as many of them as we can. We've got my chief of staff, Ann, is here. She's helping us out. So thank you, Ann, for your help. And she'll highlight questions. And if we don't get to your stuff by the end of this workshop, we're going to have time for questions. Okay, we're going to have time for questions. All right, so here we go. First, I'm just going to share a little bit about who I am, and not much though, because we got work to do. I'm going to share 4 strategies, 9 tactics. And again, I'm going to invite you to, if you're looking for help, like we're really good at what we do. We get a lot of people hired fast. So if you're looking for help with that, I have a link that you can book a call, and then we're going to, we're going to take some questions. So here we go. Who is this guy? And why does he think he can help me find a job? Well, first of all, I don't know if I can help you find a job. I don't know. I've helped a lot of people. Can I help you? Maybe, probably. Yeah, probably. I don't know though, but let's find out. Let's see how we do today on this workshop. So I actually grew up overseas. I grew up in Asia, came to the States when I was 17. I ended up transferring college 7 times. And so I was kind of a lost soul. Here I am in the Midwest wondering why it's so damn cold and why there are no leaves on the trees. I wound up moving to Guam, where I was a scuba instructor. I spent about 10,000 hours underwater, and that was great. But after a while, my brain got a little spongy, and so I thought, what would be a really cool job? So I thought, well, that must be something like the White House. So I wrote a letter to the president, and I said, "Dear Mr. President, you should hire me." And I sent this letter off, and I figured, well, I'm never hearing back from those bastards. But about a couple of weeks later, I was going past the Guam post office, and I got an envelope, and it was in White House stationery. And I was like, well, that's crazy. So I opened it up, and it was an internship application. And I didn't know what the hell an internship was, but I was really good at filling out applications. So I filled it out, sent it in. And it was like the worst application you ever seen. I figured, well, I'm never hearing back from those guys. But that got me thinking. I applied to some grad schools, and I got into GW. And so I landed in DC with like this big bushy haircut and like a backpack. And I was out, bought a pair of running shoes, was out running down the National Mall. And in the meantime, I'm like dumpster diving for furniture. It's I'm sort of, figuring it out. Run past the White House. And I think, those White House bastards, they never even bothered to let me know about that internship thing. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. So I found a payphone, put in a quarter. I called them up. I said, hey, you bastards, what about that internship thing? They're like, is this Eric from Guam? I'm like, yeah, but I'm in DC now. They're like, man, we've been trying to get in touch with you. You start in the First Lady's office on Monday. So I thought, well, that's interesting. So I bought a suit, bought a pair of shoes, got a haircut, and I showed up. And now look, folks, I know we got a lot of politics going on at least in the United States right now. I don't know what your politics are. So if mine aren't yours, please forgive me. But this was back during the Clinton administration. Tells you how old I am. And I started working for Hillary Rodham Clinton. She was a great boss. I learned a lot from her. And I eventually got hired on her staff. And I wound up following her. And I see a lot of people signing up, which is fantastic. So if you haven't signed up, the calendar is filling. So she was a great boss. And I followed her to the Senate. And then I followed her to the State Department, where I did UNESCO stuff. And then eventually I left Hillary Land and wound up as director of fellowships and internships at the Smithsonian. And all during that time, I helped a lot of people with their careers, right? Now I do coaching. I've written a bunch of books. I have so many fancy pieces of paper, right? I'm a trained professional, and you guys don't care about any of that. I have all these testimonials, and you don't care about any of that, because what you care about is, can I help you? Okay, let's find out. Okay, let's talk about you. Okay, what about you? Let's find out. Okay, so buckle up. Here we go. We're going to go pretty fast. Let's do it, Neil. I see you. Okay, so here are 4 strategies to help you elevate your job search that you can put to work right now. All right, here's question number 1. Tell me now, folks, what is a good resume about? If you would, put it in the chat. What's a good resume about? What's a good resume about? Let's see if anybody gets it right. Hi, Gwen from Florida. So glad you're here. What's a good resume about? Put it in the chat if you would. S'il vous plaît. And I don't speak French, but there's a little bit of a delay between when I ask questions and I see the things. So, all right, Nils, you say how you can solve the hiring manager's problem. Okay. Kirk says telling story. I like that, Kirk. Good. Natalie says highlighting skills. Okay. I haven't seen the right answer yet. Eleanor says it's about accomplishments. Okay. Kev says it's metrics. Okay. Leonard says it's strengths. I still have not seen the right answer. We'll get you covered there, Nadia. Thanks for asking. So Todd says it's showcasing your brand, getting someone's attention. Nope, I haven't seen the right answer yet. Okay, captivating the reader. I mean, these aren't horrible answers, but they're all incorrect. Kev says you. Okay, so here's the thing. Just like Kev said, and like Jonathan's saying, and both Jonathans are saying, they're saying it's about selling yourself. It's about you. And that is incorrect. The answer is incorrect. A good resume isn't about you, my friends. A good resume is about them. If you want to be influential with another human being, the first thing you talk about is them. This is true in all aspects of life, including job searching. So you don't want to make a resume about you. You want to make it about them. So this is strategy number one. It's not about you, it's about them. Folks, and if you get nothing out of this workshop other than what this one strategy, it will be worth your time today. Make the resume about them. And when I say resume, I'm talking cover letters, follow-up, networking, the interview. Make it all about them. All right. So many applications there, like, let me tell you about myself. And let me put that big block of text at the top that tells you all about myself that has absolutely no context whatsoever. Me. No, don't do that. Make it about them. Okay. Because employers are focused on themselves. Okay. And it's no wonder that we fall into that trap of making a resume about ourselves, because very likely the first resume we ever did was out of school. And in school, it is about us. It's our cubby. It's our report card. It's our worksheet. It's our transcript. It's our diploma. And yet, when we move to the working world, it's about them. It's about the client, the constituent, the customer, the shareholder. And yet, we never get that memo. A good resume is not about you. A good resume is about them. Okay, moving on to strategy number 2. Okay, folks, if I went to a library and hey, Patrick R. booked a call. Nice work, Patrick. Okay, if I went to a library and I went to a shelf of books, let's say it's a shelf of storybooks, and on the front cover of those storybooks, there were some words. What do we call those words that we put on the front cover of a storybook? What do we call those words, at least in English? What are those words that we put on the front cover of a storybook? Does anybody know? And I always swear I'm going to get like Jeopardy music to play, but it would be too complicated and I'd probably accidentally shut down the webinar. So I don't have music. Okay, so Matt says a title. Matthew says a title. Bruce, everybody's getting the answer correct. Title. Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. I see there, Mary Hooks, right? Title, right? The words on the front cover of a storybook are a title. Now, isn't it interesting that that's the same term we use to label people in the workplace, which tells me that just like a title is a label we put on the front cover of a storybook, a title at work is the label we put on the story of one's career. And this brings us to strategy number 2. You want to tell stories. Let me ask you another question. What % of human decision-making do you think is emotional to logical, right? So is it 50-50, 60-20? Thanks, Ann. Good job, right? What % is emotional to logic? Put it in the chat. What % do you think is emotional logic? Because the reason stories are so important is stories how we convey emotion. Okay, so Neil says 99-1. Kim says 90-1, right? Kirk says 70-30, 70-30, right? Right? Oh, somebody got it right. Diana got it right. Human decision-making is 100% emotional. So these people walking around saying, we make data-driven decisions. Nah. The original decision is already emotional. Probably all of you who are on this workshop, you've already decided whether you think I'm somebody that might be able to offer you something. You probably decided it in the first 5 seconds of this workshop. And now you're just listening for data, right? To rationalize your original decision, which was made very quickly and completely emotionally, right? And so now you're just listening for data. The reason we know decision making is 100% emotional is when some poor guy gets, his brain damaged, through the limbic system, they're fine, except they can't make a single decision. And that's the debilitating part. Okay. So decision making is 100% emotional. And the reason stories are so important is this is how we convey emotion. We can process about 20 bits of information a second through our logical brain. Through our emotional brain, it's about 40 million, right? It's orders of magnitude higher, right? So many people seek out jobs based on facts. I need metrics. Nah, you want to tell stories. Because as Maya Angelou, it's often attributed to her, the quote, right? People will remember how you make them feel. Okay, so perfect example. One time, notice I'm telling a story. I was taking a group of resumes for a summer program. And one of the applicants explained how the summer before she'd been in a terrible car accident and her arm had been severed. Oh no. So I'm like, well, that's a crazy story. We got to bring her in. So we bring her in. I'm like making sure, there's accessibility stuff for her because she just got one arm, right? She walks in the first day, 2 arms. Now it was bandaged from where it had been partially severed and reattached. And she was doing some physical therapy. She was going to be okay. Was I pissed off? Of course not. I was so happy she had both arms. And I remember that story to this day. And that was several decades. Well, I don't know about several, at least a couple of decades ago. Okay. So remember, if you're not putting stories in your stuff, you're really missing out. Okay. Make your application a story, your cover letters, your resume, your follow-up, your networking, your interview, lots of stories. And realize that your title is just a story. So you can tell different stories to different people. Okay. All right. Who knows who this guy is? Who knows what this guy is called? Hey there, Hithrick. You booked a call. Nice work. Who's this guy called? Right? I'll give you a hint. He lives in Idaho. What is this guy's name? He goes to high school. Does anybody know? Raphael says it's Pedro. He's the friend of Pedro, Raphael. That's right. He votes for Pedro. There you go, Trish and Jason and Kim and Saul. It's Napoleon Dynamite, right? Now, I don't want to ruin the movie. I see you there, Raphael, right? I don't want to ruin the movie for you guys. So first of all, if you haven't seen this movie, stop your job search. Finish this webinar, obviously. Stop your job search and go see Napoleon Dynamite, okay? Your job search will wait because it's a brilliant film. And if you haven't seen it, that's right, Nils Dance, right? I don't want to ruin it for you, but the deal is Napoleon's a high school kid. He sort of beats to his own drum. He finds himself in a situation where he's managed to get a cassette tape up to the sound booth, but he's on stage in front of his entire school and he's got to do some kind of performance. So Napoleon just does this crazy dance. He just lets it all hang out. It's the wildest thing you've ever seen. And when he's done, he's kind of panning and he's really sweaty. And the entire student body's kind of looking at him, and then they burst into applause. And the reason it works is because it's so authentic. Jamie Kern-Lima, the founder of It Cosmetics, says, everybody's a good dancer if they commit fully. And she's right. And this brings us to strategy number 3, authenticity. People are going to hire you because of who you are, not in spite of it. And those of you who are real busy trying to please ATS systems, stop. Those of you who are concealing your age, stop. Remember, it's never the scandal. It's always the cover-up. There's one reason they're going to hire you. It's not your skills. It's not your experience. It's not even if they like you. It's do they trust you? And as Brene Brown has taught us, the way we build trust with people is through authenticity and vulnerability. So it's a real opportunity. If you've got proficient in Microsoft Office on your resume, and that's not how you make mouth words in real life, take it off. Say it the way you're going to say it in real life. Remember, humans hire humans. Humans don't hire robots. Robots don't hire humans. And computers don't hire computers. In spite of all the stuff, the people out there trying to sell you ATS-friendly solutions because they want to sell ATS-friendly solutions. It's a myth, my friends. Humans hire humans. Okay? I could be wrong, and I'm not. Right? You want to have evidence on your resume that you're a human. For example, I had a client a few months ago. She got a job very quickly when she did this. She put on her resume at the very end of it, 2 truths and a lie. She got 2 interviews out of that and 2 offers just because. I had another client a while back. Well, he put on there how many marathons he'd run. I had another client. Her name was Nina. And she was having this conversation with her. I'm like, Nita, what do you like to do for fun? She's like, well, I collect pens. I'm like, well, that's super weird. Put that on there. She's like, oh, that's not professional. That I put it on there. I hear from her a month later. She went in for the interview. They talked about pens for 30 minutes and then she got the job offer. Remember, they're going to hire you because they trust you. And the more evidence, especially in this increasingly automated robotic world, the more evidence that you can give them that you're a human, that means they can trust you. And that means they're going to want to hire you. So if you've been having trouble getting traction in your job search because you've been proficient in Microsoft Office and hiding your age and all that kind of stuff, that's good news because you can do it differently. That's one of the things we help people with in my program. Okay, authenticity is your superpower. Abe Lincoln, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And this brings us to our 4th strategy, which is consistency, right? Hey, Kirk S., way to book a call. Nice job, right? Consistencies. Often what I see happens is people will have this flash in the pan of activity and they'll go 3 rounds in an interview and then they get a big fat no, and that takes them off the field for 3 months or 3, hopefully not 3 months, sometimes, but 3 weeks, right? So you like, the only reason you're getting the results you're getting right now is the system that you have. Your current results are perfectly attuned to your current system. So if you want to have different results, you're going to have a different system. Now, some of you are furiously working through a control box that's about this big, and you're doing the dials and the levers, and you're doing a hell of a good job. But what you don't realize is there's a whole other control panel. There's all sorts of buttons and levers that you don't even know about. And so as much as you try to change the levers to get the right setting in your job search, it's going to be really hard because you're missing like a vast majority of the controls. And so that's why you want to have a system that you can be consistent with, right? You want to work smart, not hard, get your quality up and then scale it up, right? Don't make this a numbers game from the beginning, right? There's no one setting that's right for everybody. And this is one of the things I help clients do in my program is we work with you to get things dialed in because we don't know exactly what's going to work for you, but we have a good idea. And if we spend a little time, tinkering with it, you're going to get hired fast because there's nothing wrong with you, right? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just your system is no good. Okay. There's no such thing as a failed experiment. And remember, it's not about you. It's about your systems. Okay. So how do you put all of this to work? So before we do that, we have a little bit, I just want to show you what can come from putting some of these systems into work. And then I'm going to come right back to you. This is a client who recently, she just got hired. Her name's Angel. And this is what happened to her. She attended a workshop just like this and signed up for my program. And look what happened to her. This is kind of inspiring. So pay attention. Oops, sorry. In the time we've got left, I'm curious, especially if there's somebody we haven't heard from yet. They've had a win, a loss. Angel, I got to ask you, what do we know, if anything? What do we know?
I got the job. Yay!
Whoa!
The offer. I'm moving in a week. Yeah, it's crazy. And I know when we first met, you're like, oh, like, let's get something by your birthday. And my birthday is in 4 days. So I was able to do it. Yay!
And I just want to acknowledge you. Like, you dove in, you did it, you did the work.
Thank you.
Way to go.
It would not have been possible without like signing up for this program. Truly, I think it made the difference for me.
So good, Angel.
Yeah.
Really happy for you.
Yeah.
Super awesome. Congratulations to you. Yeah. All right. So there you go. Just a little inspiration. Look, folks, if you've been doing this for a while and you feel discouraged, this can happen for you. I promise. Okay. So how do you put all of this to work? Okay. Buckle up because here we're going to go. We're going 9 tactics and we're going to go kind of fast because we got to get to work. Here we go. Tactic number 1. Okay, folks. So if first of all, if you're watching this live, you rule. You're very cool. And if you're watching the replay, you're also very cool. Not quite as cool as the live people, but it's okay. And regardless of how you're watching this, if you get nothing else from this workshop, pay attention because this will change the game for you. Okay, so here's the setup. Let's say there's a lake and in the middle of the lake, somebody's drowning. Now that person is surrounded by other people in little boats. Okay. Little boats. Yeah, that's right, Natalia, right? Other people in little boats. So somebody's drowning and they're surrounded by other people in little boats. If that was a job search, who's the person drowning? Okay. Yeah. Who's the person drowning? So there's a lake, somebody's drowning in the middle and they're surrounded by other people in little boats. If that metaphorically was a job search, who's the person drowning? Put it in the chat. Let's see if anybody gets it right. Who's the person drowning, right? It's like, oh, Eric's making us think today. What's going on with this? But I promise you, This is really important. Who's the person drowning? I can hear you all thinking, right? Who's the person drowning, right? Interesting. Kareem. Yes. Kim. Todd. Look at you guys. Notice what people are writing. Right. It's not you. Right. Oh, okay. And you're saying it's you, but we got a ton of right answers there. Trish, I see you, Trish. Right. But the old you, says Melissa. So here's the thing. A lot of us, when we're on the job search because we have bills or whatever the case may be, we act as though we're the one drowning. And that's not accurate. It's actually the employer. And the reason we know it's the employer is they've told us. That's right, Natalie. They've told us. They put up a job description that says, help, we're drowning. We need help. The people in the boats are actually the applicants. And even though they're safe in the boats, some of you, even on this call, are acting like you're the one in the water. You're like, oh, I'm the best. I'm the best for you. I'd be good to like pick me, right? Where others of you are like, hey, you're drowning. That sucks. Notice who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about them. You're drowning. That's terrible. Let's have a conversation about how you might get out of the water, right? Like, there's lots of options for how you can get out on the water. Let's see how we can make that happen. It's not important that I pull you out of the water. What's important is you don't drown and die, right? That's what employers are looking for, right? You're not the one drowning. You're the one extending your hand. You need a job. You don't need that job, right? Whereas there's only one of you, right? There's only one Mary and Natalie and Abdul and Melissa and Anit and Neil and Elham. There's only one of each of you. But there's lots of jobs that you can take. So this brings us to tactic number 1. Most people are like, I hope if you have the words, I would be good for you in your stuff, get rid of it. Because as soon as you say something like that, you rob them of the opportunity for that to be their idea. And because, people are going to support what they create. So don't rob them of that opportunity. Realize they'd be lucky to get you. You want to apply and approach them from a place of service, right? This isn't about your need. This is about serving them, right? People don't want to be sold. Don't get into the business of selling yourself, right? Selling people's weird. We've gone over this historically. Buying people's even weirder. Don't do that, right? Don't do that, right? This isn't about selling yourself. What you could do is talk about what's possible for them. But again, it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your age, the gap on your resume, how many times you switched careers, none of it. All right. Here we go. Tactic number 2. Some of you may have seen the show Deadliest Catch, right? And for those that haven't, it's a reality show. Fishermen in Alaska, they're usually on this really icy, cold Bering Sea on this, slippery deck, and basically they drop these big cages onto the ocean floor. They call them crab pots with a little bit of bait, and a crab will invariably come along and be like, free lunch. And the crab goes in. Then his buddy Bob comes along and says, oh, free lunch. And then Sally sees those two guys and she's like, free lunch. More and more crabs join. Here's the interesting thing, though. The bait's gone usually very quickly. And the more and more crabs keep joining. Anytime a crab tries to leave the crab pot, the other crabs will pull them in because crabs like to be with other crabs. That's what crabs do. And they'll even remove the limbs of their fellow crab. They'll even kill a fellow crab to keep them from crawling out. They'll do a crab manslaughter or crab slaughter, whatever you're going to call it, right? And this brings us to the next tactic, which is your environment. It really matters, right? Environment eats willpower for lunch. So you might think, oh, I'm not doing great because I'm lazy or I'm procrastinating. Nah, it's more than likely it's just your environment. It's who you're surrounding yourself with, right? Most people don't even consider it. And some of you have heard about reference groups, right? Where the average weight, income, education of the 5 people we hang out with most. And these don't even have to be living people. These could be authors that lived 100 years ago, or the media we consume, or the music we listen to. So if you're not focused on elevating your environment, it's a real opportunity. And it's one of the ways people in my program get hired fast, right? It has a huge impact. You want to be intentional about your environment and safeguard it. And if you're surrounded by a lot of people thinking, well, you're just not that smart and you should really just settle, like, we can love them. And our friend is boundaries on that, right? Lots of good boundaries. All right. That's what you want. Cool. All right. So this is tactic number 3. Can't tell you how often I talk to clients or prospective clients and I'm like, what do you want to do? They're like, well, I want to help people. I'm like, that's beautiful. I'm like, how much do you want to make? Well, anywhere between 30 grand and 200,000. That's really beautiful. And it's super vague, right? This has to do with the reticular activating system, which is basically the part of our brain, Bruce Lee said, be careful what you tell yourself because your body's listening, right? So right now, if I said the color red, I'm sure all of you are now a little bit more aware of red in your environment than you were 5 seconds ago, because our brain will look for what we tell it to look for. And if we look for help people, well, our brain doesn't know what that is. It's too vague. If we look for, a huge salary range, it's hard to find, right? So this is why you want to have clarity, right? You want to have clarity about all of it, around how you're going to help them and how much you're going to make doing it and where you're going to do it and who you're going to do it for, right? Because that specificity is vital. There's a reason when we go buy a new car and we drive off the lot and we're like, nobody's got this car. Driving home from the lot, we see it 5 times just because we weren't seeing it before, because our brain wasn't looking for it. Okay. It's super, super vital. All right, here we go. Tactic number 4. Okay. This is for the chat. Let's see here. Who can get this right? If I went to a store and I bought this, what would I be buying? Put it in the chat, please. Right? What would I be buying here? If I went to a store and I bought this thing, what would I be buying? Let's see if somebody gets it right. Right. And again, this is where I need sort of, so Neil says it's a drill. Okay, Neil, right? Ooh, Saul says it's a hole. Todd says it's a cordless drill, right? Raphael says tools, right? A Ryobi drill, says Gwen. Yep. Yeah, great. Okay. Andres says a tool. Okay. Cool. A solution, says Linda. Yeah, you guys now you know how tricky I am, right? So Mark says a screw gun. So here's the thing. And so appreciate your guys entering. So Saul actually had an interesting answer. Yeah, I like your answer too, Chona, right? So Saul says, I actually don't need one of these things lying around my house, right? As beautiful as this piece of modern art is, right? I don't need this. What I actually need, as Saul said, is I need the whole. And actually, Saul, sorry, buddy, you're wrong. I actually don't need a hole in my wall. I mean, who needs that? What I actually need is a place to put the hook. And actually, that's wrong too, because I don't want a bunch of hooks coming out of my wall. They'll gash my arm open. What I really need is a place to hang the picture of my family. And actually, now that I think about it, I don't even need that. What I really want is the feeling I get when I look at the picture of my beautiful family that's hanging on the hook, that's in the hole that was made by the drill. And this brings us to our next tactic. See, what a lot of people are doing is they're just talking about themselves, and that's just a hot dumpster fire. And I mean, lightning might strike, you might get hired, but good luck, right? So even if they are talking about them, which is great, they're talking about the drill, right? And the opportunity is, don't talk about the drill or even the hole or the hook or the picture. You want to talk about the thing that keeps them up at night when they're staring at their ceiling trying to go to sleep. If you can make them feel that seen, heard, and understood, you're going to give them safety. And if you give them that safety, that job is yours, because the one question they're asking is, can we trust them, right? Can we trust Nadia and Adul and Shelly and Jonathan? Can we trust them? That's what they're asking. So you might as well give them every opportunity to build that trust, right? You got to understand what they like, want, or need. What keeps them up at night? How can you make them feel more seen, heard, and understood? All right, guys, we're trucking along here. Tactic number 5, paper. This is actually a version of my resume, right? It's sort of like a model home kitchen sink of resumes, but here it is. And this brings us to paper, right? And guys, I'll just tell you right now, resumes are stupid, right? And anybody tells you that there's one correct way to do a resume is full of it. They don't know. It's all more art than science. And they're, like when we die and go to heaven and there's that big book with the gold thing, whatever your spiritual reference is, right? That's probably like a more objective accounting of our lives. And a resume is just pretty arbitrary. So realize that your paper, right, you don't want to make it look like everybody else's. That's professional camouflage. Those of you who are using stuff like teal or, like I have a template, don't do that, because that's just a recipe for making your stuff look like everybody else, right? If you're trying to show that you're exceptional, then be exceptional. Don't look like everybody else. Realize that your paper is just a communication piece. You want to communicate with employers in a way they cannot ignore. So for instance, does your resume have hyperlinks? Right? Is it making them feel seen, heard, and understood? Do you have evidence on there that you're a human? All opportunities for you. All right, tactic number 6. Here we go. If somebody submits a job application and they don't follow up, does it even make a sound? I bet it doesn't. So that brings us to tactic number 6, follow-up. And I'm not talking about when they contact you. I'm talking about you apply and then you follow up multiple times. Now, some of you are saying, but I don't know who to follow up with. I hear you. And if the person you love most in the world was going to get kidnapped by the end of the day today, could you find somebody's email address? I bet you could. Like, there's a way. It just depends how, like, how committed are you on this stuff, right? If, yeah, like follow up. And you could say on your resume that, like, I know how to take leadership and take initiative, but remember, they're going to believe what you show them more than what you tell them. So you want to follow up. And some of you are saying, well, boy, Eric, isn't that pushy? Let's go back to our drowning person, right? If you were in the boat and they were face down in the water and you said, hey, buddy, you okay? And they didn't move, would you just be like, ooh, I don't want to bother them. Don't want to be pushy. No, you'd jump in the water. You'd swim over. You'd splash him. You'd flip him over. You'd even lock lips with a stranger and do mouth to mouth. And if he came to and was like, lady, I'm just snorkeling, you'd be like, my bad. But you'd be willing to risk offending in the name of service. And that's how you want to do your job search. You want to show them that you're willing to go to war for them. And if you're not, don't apply there, right? But that's what you want to show them. And if you're not willing to follow up from a place of service, like, how do they even know you're going to do the work they need? How can they trust you? Remember, initiative is rewarded. I hear you, Nadia, right? They followed up and they ghosted you. Here's my question about your follow-up. Did it sound something like, hey, I just wanted to check in, or hey, I'm really interested in your job, or hey, I'm wondering what your timeline is? Nadia, I don't know if that's what you said. And if you did, my question for you is, who is that about? I don't know, Nadia. I don't know you, but like, if you're following up and you're making it about yourself, of course they're going to ghost you. Why wouldn't they? Whereas if you're following up and you're making it about them, they will pay attention. Trust me. And there's other little tricks that you can use. All right. So perfect example. This guy, Darren Hardy, used to publish Success Magazine, redheaded white guy in a shiny suit. Is exactly what you would think, right? He used to tell the story where he would knock on people's doors when their houses eventually became open for new selling realtors. It's something that came up on the MLS early in the morning. Most realtors would call like mid-morning. He would show up at 6 a.m., full suit, knocking on the door. When they sort of said, who are you? He said, hey, I'm Darren. I'm going to sell your house. Here's the paperwork. And even if they didn't sign up then, right, around mid-morning, he'd send a gift basket. Around 1 o'clock, it'd be an associate with a sold sign. And he said he lost about 1 out of 5 for being too much, and he got the other 4. Remember, people want to see that they can trust you. And the best way to do that is to show them. All sorts of stories on this, folks. All sorts of stories. Okay, we're on to tactic number 7. That's right, Raphael. Don't give up. Tactic number 7. So look, folks, again, this is one of those instances. If you've been like watching the replay and you've been trimming your bonsai tree or something, come back to me. And those of you, there's so many of you who are still here, man. You guys are sticking around. Okay, here we go. Tactic number 7, and this is networking. Ask for help. If I went to your Google contacts, wherever you keep your people right now, and I said, how many of them know, Nadia and Raphael or Jamie is job searching? I wonder how many would be, would say, I know Jamie's looking. I know Nadia's looking. I don't know. Is that because you put up something on your LinkedIn like 3 months ago and maybe they saw it that day and maybe they remember? Or is it that you're actively in touch with your network? And by the way, are you saying these words? I need help. There's a reason when movie stars get up at the Academy Awards and they win some big prize and they get up there and they say, yeah, I got nobody to thank. Yeah, nobody helped. No, of course they don't. They're like, I got to thank this person and this person, and this person. They're playing the music, trying to get them off stage. This person, right? People do great things when they ask for help. Remember, it's a gift when we ask for help, because if we didn't think their help was worth it, we wouldn't ask for it. And there's a lot of really savvy ways to do this. Remember, asking for help makes you look strong, not weak. You could be one email away from ending all this job search madness that you've been going through. Vulnerability equals trust, and trust is the reason you're going to hire. And by the way, you don't want to do this as a one-off, because that means you got to get the right bait on the right fish at the right depth at the right time, right? Hey, Satal, you signed up for a call. We look forward to talking to you. Great, right? You got to get the right fish, and it's just like, it might line up. But we want to do instead is have a system where we filter the ocean. That's what we want to be about, right? If we do that, we don't have to worry about where the opportunities are, because it's very unlikely, sort of like fishing, that we're going to guess where something's going to show up. We're everywhere. And the opportunity is to have a system for that. All right. This is tactic number 8, interviews. Here's the best interview advice in the world. Now we're going to get some questions, man. Here's the best interview advice in the world. Okay. You may want to write this down. I'll wait. Here it is. Don't answer their questions. So many of you are going to these interviews being like, I hope I get the answer right. Now, look, if it's like a technical interview and, it's sort of like a black or white answer, sure, go ahead and answer the questions. But if it's anything like tell me about a time or tell me about yourself or what's your greatest strength or where do you hope to be in 5 years, the last thing you want to do is talk about yourself. Because if you want to be influential, you want to talk about them. Trust me, they're not there in that interview to get information from you. They're there to make a decision about whether they can trust you. That's it. So you might as well give them answers and tell stories that contribute to that worthy cause. This isn't a transfer of information. This is them deciding if they can trust you. Okay. Don't answer the questions, right? Okay. Final tactic. And then we're going to take some questions. Here we go. So offers. Here's what I see a lot of people doing. They hem and haw because they're like, so I'll meet somebody. I'll be like, how many jobs you apply to? And they'll be like, well, Eric, you got to understand, I'm very particular about where I apply. I'm like, what's your thinking? Well, if I apply, then, I get the job and then I may have to move to Connecticut and the brain just goes to kind of like this default future. Realize that you don't have to worry about one, if you're qualified for a job, or two, you want the job unless and until you get the offer. And here's the thinking on that. One, it's very nice that you have an opinion about whether you're qualified, but it kind of doesn't matter. What matters is their opinion. And the way you show that you're qualified is you talk about them. Two, how can you know if you want something unless and until it's been offered? You don't know what's on the table. David, he says, if you don't answer the question, then what do? You tell stories and you give answers to questions about them, right? Now, there's a technique to this. It's one of the things we talk about in my program. But if you go in there and they say, tell us about yourself, and David, I'm going to pick on you, right? And David says, well, I was born here and I went to school here and blah, 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 blah. They already know that, as opposed to saying, showing what's possible with them. Nadia says, I'd like to know why interviews say we would love to invite you to a second interview and then never hear from them again. What's their point in line? So basically, yeah, they want to look good, Nadia. They're people too. Like people, like giving interviews is almost as bad as being interviewed. And they're afraid, right? They're afraid of looking bad. Nobody wants to look bad. They're scared too, which is all the more reason to give them safety, right? And again, interviews are weird. They're more art than science. There's a lot that goes into them. And a lot of the ways we do interviews are not great because we just don't get that much practice. The nice thing with my program is we've helped a couple hundred people successfully get through interviews. So we sort of know where the hacks are. Okay. Most people, you don't have to worry about it until you get the offer. Again, apply liberally from a place of service. You never know what might happen. Okay, folks. So here we go. 4 strategies and 9 tactics. I'm going to leave these up for a second so you can write them down. And here's what I want to say to you. Some of you have heard this workshop and you're like, wow, this is different stuff. I want to go try this stuff. And that's beautiful. And some of you are hearing this workshop and you're saying that exact same thing. And your next question is, how the hell do I do this? Or some of you are saying, yeah, I know all this. And you haven't done it for the last 3, 6, 9 months, year and a half. Okay. So I want to tell you just briefly about my program, Get Hired Fast. It's awesome. We're very good at what we do. We've been doing it for a little over 4 years. We've helped a lot of job seekers and we've only gotten better at it. Lots of testimonials I could give you. Actually, you know what? I forgot to give you one. I'm going to give you one right now. So let's do that. And then we're going to take some more Q&A. This is Kay. I love this. It's amazing. Watch this.
Path, man. Keep on the path. All right. We're getting a bigger crowd now. It's so nice. Tell me who else has something to share. Yeah, Kay, talk to us.
So I went off camera a few minutes ago because I just got an offer from my dream job and my dream company. So real time, it happened just now. So on, thanks, Eric.
I don't know about you, but that gives me goosebumps, right? That gives me goosebumps, right? And that's what we do in this program. It's pretty awesome. So if you haven't signed up for a call and you'd like to, I like you too, Ismail. I like you too. Please do. Okay. So here we go. Let's, there's the link. We're going to share it. So let's take some questions here. Let's see who's got a question. So if you would, and especially if I haven't had a chance to, if I haven't had a chance to ask a question or answer your question, please put it in the chat and we'll get to as many questions as we can. Okay, Neil, where do you put the Penn's marathon story on your resume, as they may not read the whole thing? Well, it's possible they won't read the whole thing. However, Neil, if somebody gave you a book that was all about Neil and it was a pretty good book, would you just read the first page? No, you'd read the whole thing, right? And it's the same thing with a resume. If you make the resume about you, yeah, they might stop reading halfway down the first page. And if you make it about them, they're going to read the whole thing. And they're going to get to a section somewhere that's like the more Neil section or the special skills, interests, and others section. And and then they're going to see the evidence that you're a human. One time I had a guy who put on his resume how he spent the weekends LARPing. And we called him in because we were like, we got to meet this person. And he was awesome. And we hired him. Not because of the LARPing, but if he hadn't put LARPing on there, and those of you who don't know what LARPing is when you go like in the parks and you sword fight with Nerf swords and stuff like that. That's called LARPing. So it's that sort of stuff. Hope that answers your question. Thanks, Ann. This is really helpful. Okay, HS. Isn't it better to get referred by somebody first and then internally apply? How should we cold call someone that lead us for an interview? So absolutely, right? If you can get referred, that's great. But the thing you probably don't want to do, HS, is like network into a place and then before you've applied, because they're instantly going to say, have you applied? And you're going to say, not yet. And they're going to say, well, go ahead and do that. And then the conversation's over. Whereas if you go in there, and the other version of this is where people say, I'm really interested in your company. Let's get coffee. And the person's like, well, I have enough coffee in my life. Like, I'll tell you about my company, but like, there's no call to action. So you want to be specific and clear with your calls to action. It makes a huge difference. Okay, what else do we have here? How do you balance being a human, but also having a CV that meets IAA initial sifting? So here's what I would say, Emma. What do you mean by AI initial sifting? And if you're like, I don't know, exactly. Right? There are systems out there. They're applicant tracking systems. They're all different. Every organization is different. And at the end of the day, it's a human that's going to read those. And even if it's not, we don't want to get into the business of like trying to beat the robots, right? We have thumbs, folks. We still have thumbs, right? So the opportunity, and by the way, recruiters are like professionally trained ninjas at like keeping you away from the hiring managers. So I love recruiters and whatever. Yay, capitalism. Just circumvent those guys with a lot of love and find, Emma, the person that speaks your language, who's drowning, who's dying for work. And they're probably kind of pissed off at HR because why is it taking so long? And if you find them, you make them feel seen, heard, and understood. They show up on the back door of HR and they'd be like, Emma, I want to talk to Emma. And guess what happens? That automated no that you got all of a sudden disappears. And now it's congratulations. We'd like to move you forward. And by the way, on those automated no's, just ignore those, please. You don't have to worry about them. Just proceed. And as soon as you get a hiring manager say, I want to talk to Emma or whoever, they will. All right. What other questions do we have here? Hey there, Max. Can you give some more insight on not answering the questions and providing a story instead? Okay. So let's say we're in an interview, Max, and you ask me the question, Eric, tell me about yourself. I'd say something like this. I'd say, Max, well, I'll tell you all about myself. And here's the thing, Max, I love that you're at this workshop. The fact that you took time out of your day to be at this workshop stands out so much. And not only that, Max, but you had the initiative to ask a question, to put yourself out there. That says so much about the dedication that you're contributing to this job search and the possibility that exists for you in terms of finding a job. Really acknowledge you, Max. Now, to answer your question, I hope people get hired fast. What would you like to hear about first? So notice maybe at the end I talk about me, but the real crux of it is talking about Max. Now, I don't know Max. I went with what I had, but can you imagine if I knew a little bit more about Max, what I could say? That's the opportunity. Good question, Max. All right, Nadia. And thank you so much. Nadia, how do you make it about them? Does that mean every job you apply to, you have to edit your resume? That would be so time consuming. Well, it could be time consuming if you didn't have a system for doing that, Nadia. You're right. If you were writing every resume from scratch to make it about them, that sounds like a real drag. On the other hand, if you had a system, and this is one of the things we offer in my program, to make this, 30, 45 minutes, to streamline it, to make it about them, this isn't such a drag. And then, I would much rather people send in one application that's customized where there's follow-up and networking around it, like one a week, than 50 a week. And what if you did one a day and you made, and you're doing the follow-up and all the rest? It's a real opportunity for everybody. Yeah. So guys, look, I know my calendar's filling up. If you haven't already signed up and you want to, don't wait. All right, let's take another question. If we've got one. Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much. Does the LARPing section work on an executive level resume? Actually, Kim, believe it or not, it works there best of all. It works there best of all because most people in the working world, they're bored. They're bored. They're sitting around listening to the same thing over and over. And to have somebody come through that's got a pulse, that shows a little personality, that shows a little life, it's everything. Now, look, you got to use your good judgment here. If LARPing isn't authentic for you, don't put it on there. And if you're applying for a place where you go to the About page and they all kind of look like this, maybe you don't go with LARPing. Or maybe you do. Because while everybody else is talking about how proficient they are in Microsoft Office, you can be talking about what's possible for them and showing them that you're somebody that would be interesting to hang out with, right? To work with. Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to take two more questions. Really appreciate you for being here. And yeah. Okay, so Ashby says, how do you follow up in a way that makes them respond after you've applied? And how long do you wait to follow up? So great question, Ashby. I mean, the main way to have them follow up after you have them respond after you applied is just make them feel seen, heard, and understood. That's it. It sounds really simple. But if I'm Ashby and I'm talking about Ashby, well, but if I'm recognizing, I mean, this has happened so many times, right? Like I've had clients who've been doing this for a long time. And as soon as they say something about a person or they acknowledge that person, they'll instantly get a message back. It's unbelievable. How long do you wait to follow up? I like a week. But if it's a brand new job description, maybe you wait. And by the way, if you don't necessarily have to hire up with a hiring manager. You can follow up with the CEO. And if the CEO gets a message from Ashby and Ashby's message to the CEO is, hey, CEO so-and-so, the work you and your work colleagues are doing with A, B, and C stands out so much. Really want to acknowledge what you do. Thanks. The first question that CEO is asking is, who the hell's Ashby? So CEO writes Ashby, and Ashby says, oh, my bad. So sorry. Yeah, I recently applied to your such and such job. Now, as soon as the CEO hears that, what's she going to do? She's instantly going to forward it to HR, and not just anybody in HR, the person in HR that reports to her. Because HR has been kind of slow, right? We've been sort of worried about HR because we're always worried about HR. And now we begin because now HR has Ashby's resume, has no idea what the relationship between the CEO and Ashby is, just knows that it's now on the radar. And now that resume gets attention. And by the way, if it's possible for the HR people to go back to CEO and say, guess what? We're going to interview Ashby. That makes them look good. Guess what? We're going to hire Ashby. 5 years later at the company picnic, CEO elbows somebody and says, Ashby, I hired Ashby. HR didn't find Ashby. I don't know if it happens like that. But those of you who have been in the working world long enough know that that's exactly how it happens a lot of time. Okay. Last question. Thank you so much. So Jamie, how would you recommend selling through a declination due to being overqualified when it's an opportunity you're excited about? Great question. Okay, so here's the thing on overqualified. Most of you are probably not getting as much traction as you want because you're overqualified. And here's the deal on that. If you had to decide between somebody who was qualified and just barely versus somebody who is way overqualified, who would you tend to choose? Most of you would choose the person who's just barely qualified for a lot of reasons. One, you don't have to pay them as much. Two, they're going to stick around for a while. Three, they're going to do the job you need them to do. Whereas the person who's overqualified, right, they're probably going to leave in 10 minutes. They're not going to do the job you want them to do because they were doing that 20 years ago. And if they do it, they're not going to do it the way you want to do it because they've been doing it for 20 years. So the opportunity, if you find yourself in a position where you're overqualified, is not to dumb down your resume. The opportunity is to aim higher. Where's the job where you would be the one that's barely qualified? That's the job you want to apply to. Easier said than done. So look, folks, I really just acknowledge all of you. I'm just so great. Now you're getting, whoops, I was going to show you my giant head. There we go. I really acknowledge you for being here And just want to let you know that, if you've been on the job search for a really long time, you're going to figure this out. And if you've been on it for a really long time and you've been afraid to calculate how much it's costing you to be on a job search, my encouragement for you is like, sign up and come talk to us, right? We have a coaching program. If you're worried about the money piece, we have like a bazillion payment plans, knocks it down to a couple $100 a month, right? It's really affordable, because you don't have to do this alone. Doing this alone this is hard enough, and doing it alone is really not fun. So, just grateful to you for being here. I hope get a chance to meet you, and just know there are bright things on the horizon for you. And you don't have to keep doing what you've been doing. You can do something different. Today could be the day where you decide to do that. I hope it is. And I'm cheering for you very much, folks. So nice to see you all, and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here.
I'm a big Eric Woodard fan. Eric has an infectious energy that I just feel like I benefited so much in not only my career search, but in my life, just having a few one-on-ones with Eric, having weekly groups, being part of the Facebook group. I just can't say enough good things about him as a human being, as a career coach. The things I learned from his workshop that helped my cover letter, that helped my resume, I am eternally grateful. And if you are on the fence of signing up for one of Eric's workshops, I would absolutely recommend doing it. So that's my 2 cents.
So, hey, we have Christine, who was a Win at Work client. So just Christine, tell, how did you find me? How did we find each other?
Well, you actually reached out to me on LinkedIn. So I don't know how you found me, but I appreciate that you did. And I was actually looking for a coach. So the timing was sort of perfect. And you sent me a link, and I looked at one of your presentations, and I really liked what you had to say. And then we scheduled time, and we met a couple times, and we this is a good fit.
Awesome. And so once we started working together, what was your experience like? Like, what did you learn? Like, how was it for you?
It was good. It was challenging because it does. And that was one of the reasons why I should backtrack by saying, I've sat through a lot of these, like, this is how you find a job things. And I think most of them are crap because they're not specific to the individual, right? They're just sort of generic things that they tell everybody. And obviously if those things work, then nobody would have to sit through how to find a job. So what I liked about what you had to say was that you kind of challenged those sort of standard tropes that people float out about, send a lot of resumes or do this or do that. And you didn't just say, these are the standard things to do. So that's what appealed to me. So, but in fact, it was challenging because you were in fact challenging old habits. So it's not something that was just simple or easy to do because it is forcing you to kind of examine, well, why am I going about it this way? Or is there another way, to go about this process? So it was hard at times, but it was fruitful.
Awesome, Christine. And what was your result? How did you wind up? What was your outcome?
Did things a little bit. My result was that I did do things a little bit differently, which for me meant actually applying to multiple jobs at the same time, which I normally don't do. And we did do some changes to the resume, and we talked about cover letters and just how you break down the job descriptions. And I did apply that stuff to the job I ended up getting. So I do think, and we talked obviously a lot about interviewing and how to approach that. And so I think all of those things were beneficial. It did, and it also was built in accountability. And I think for me, that was the thing I was searching for. was having accountability to some other person that wasn't a family member or a friend who can be exhausted by those things, to say, well, what are you doing? Or are you looking? Or, okay, well, let's talk about it. And just having that space to work with a person who's focused on it and not humoring me was really, really helpful. So I think all of those things fed into helping me to actually apply to the job I got that I otherwise probably would have just ignored and just not done anything about.
Well, look, Christine, I know, you wound up getting almost 2 offers, definitely 1 offer within like a month of our working together. And I just so want to acknowledge you because, you took a lot of the strategies and tactics and you really ran with them and put them to work. And as a result, you got a great result, and all the credit goes to you, Christine. So I really acknowledge you.
It goes to us.
It goes to us. Very good. I really appreciate that. Well, congratulations. And I'm so glad about your success.
Thank you.